Hello, hello. Welcome to this Support for Stressful Times webinar. We're starting, and it's lovely to be with you. We take this time to refresh our ability to be calm and resilient, even in stressful times. And it's one of the things that gives us some calm and relief is simply being with other people who are on the same journey. Wonderful. Hello, 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 hello. Nice to be with you. Let's all take a moment to pause. So my number one tip is always pausing, and let's do that together right now. Notice I just kind of automatically put my hand on my body. It's nice to put your hand on your body with a gesture of gentleness to yourself. Gesture of gentleness toward yourself, pausing and sensing how you are right now. It's a very powerful thing to do. How am I right now? You know, our feelings change, and our feelingful reaction to our lives changes like weather. So it's kind of like you're sensing your inner weather right now. How's my inner weather? And it doesn't mean that you need to name what you're feeling with a particular word out of your vocabulary of words about feelings. You might be feeling something that has no word, or that's hard to put into words. How is your inner weather? Christina writes, it's difficult to get a deep breath today. Okay, noticing that. So we pause, we say, how am I now? And then when we find how we feel, we don't try to change it. We acknowledge it. So I am present to how I feel. I am curious and I care about how I feel. But when I notice how I feel, I give a space where it can be the way it is. So how I feel can be the way it is. That's a radical thing to say to yourself, isn't it? How I feel can be the way it is. And I am here with that. Wow. Do you know how often people immediately try to change their feelings? Oh, I don't have to feel that way. Or why do I feel that way? Or go for distraction, go for the food. And I'm saying this in kind of a joking voice, but I have a lot of compassion for that, and I've done it many times myself. I've had many addictions in my life, meaning there's activities and substances that I've gone after, usually so that I wouldn't have to feel something difficult. I have lots of compassion for that. But I want to say to you that if I can at all support you, you can be with even difficult feelings. Now, I got an email from somebody earlier today who wanted me to talk about something. I'm just checking to see if that person's in class today. I can't tell. I'm going to talk about this. And that has to do with the terrible, unbearable feeling of aloneness, of being, she wrote in her email, 100% alone. She does see a therapist on Zoom, but all the activities that she did before this crisis happened that allowed her to get out and be with people, be in a choir and so on, none of them is happening. She has no family. And the question is, what do we do with painful feelings that come from something very real? And I'm sure that others of you can relate as well. Even if it isn't loneliness, Maybe it's anxiety, sadness. I'm just looking at the chat, I'm seeing grief, tense, yeah. And despair, Christina wrote. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Amy, my dear. Amy's got sadness, grief, hopelessness, despair, overwhelm, and anxiety. So we might be feeling some pretty hard things. And here I am saying, don't try to change them. But here's why. Because every feeling that you have is on its way to another feeling. We don't know when. But when you acknowledge it, when you are present to how you feel, when you allow it to be felt in your body, when you sense what it feels like, and when you say to that feeling, yes, I hear you, that enables a natural movement into the next thing. When we fight our feelings, tell them they shouldn't be that way, feel bad about having bad feelings, that's when they don't change. That you don't have to just believe me. Let's give it a try right now. So we're sitting here together, and I asked you to sense your inner weather. And some people found some sunshine and lightness in your inner weather. So you don't have to feel bad right now. But let's say you are, for those who are. For those who are. And for those who aren't feeling anything difficult right now, just take note of this process as something you could do another time. So we are settling into body awareness. And we pause and sense, how am I now? And I put my hand right here. You don't have to do that. But and you might not be feeling it here in your heart area. You can, however, if you want to, move your hand to a place in your body where you're feeling something painful or hard or challenging. The hand is not trying to change the feeling. The purpose of the hand is to give company. And it's like with your hand, you're saying, I am with you. So your feeling, you see, your feeling shows up in you. Your emotion, sadness, grief, loneliness, anxiety, it shows up in you like a guest. It's like a guest. Your choice is it going to be an unwelcome guest and I try to shove out the door? Or is it a welcome guest where I say, sit down? And imagine that a friend comes to your door who's been going through a hard time lately. We aren't glad that the friend went through a hard time, but we welcome the person. Just have a seat. Can I bring you a cup of tea? Can I sit with you and just hear what you've been going through? So that same process is what we give to ourselves. So let's go through it again. You pause, you sense how you're feeling. And if you're moved to let a gentle hand move to your body, that's great. And then use the language of something in me. So something in me is feeling anxiety, loneliness, fill in the blank. We're not intending to make it small. If we can say a big something in me, that's fine. But the reason to use the word something in me is so that you can give company to what you're feeling. You can be the one who invites in the guest. You can be the friend who sits down with the friend. Your feelings are like your friends. They don't always feel great, but they still are your friends. So imagine that you can sit with this place that feels so bad. And the woman who wrote me the letter would say hello to something feeling terrible loneliness. And I say to that big something in me feeling terrible loneliness, I am with you. I sense how terribly lonely you feel. Now, what can we expect to happen next? We don't know. Let's wait and see. I can guarantee you that if you try to fix the feelings, try to talk them into feeling differently, that will not bring the result we're looking for. I mean, if you've got something you like doing that helps, please don't stop. But there's something that can happen when we simply acknowledge how we feel and sit with it like a friend. There is a next step that the body can give us that we can't predict in advance. Logic, and that is, our thoughts would like to contribute to this process. The thought may say, but I am alone. How can I ever stop being alone? Or, but he is dead. How can I ever stop grieving? Okay. But really, we don't know. So I would also acknowledge the thoughts that seem to go with the stressful feelings, that seem to make the feelings even more stressful. I would also acknowledge those thoughts. I would say, something in me says, I don't see how I could ever stop feeling this. And I say hello to that, as well as the feelings. And I am here. So I am not here as somebody to cheer people up or find a solution or come across a different, I am simply here. I'm present. I'm here with you. And wouldn't that be great if every time we feel bad, we would have a friend we could go in the door, we could sit down with a cup of tea, maybe at a social distance, but we would have somebody who would say, I'm here with you. Tell me about it. I'm right here. Let's catch up to what people have been saying in the chat. Yeah. Lily says, I'm being with a much younger me who's feeling hurt, rage, and even hate. And I am here with her, sensing how she feels, letting her know she can be as she is. But it's a lovely story about being able to be with something that was hard to be with before. That's really great. Dinah writes, telling yourself to feel something else is like telling a cat to be a squirrel. Neither the cat nor the squirrel is happy. Yes, yes. And Andrea writes, if I don't acknowledge my uncomfortable feelings, they grow larger. Yes, they do. And think of it from their point of view, right? The feelings that grow larger, it's like when you're with somebody and you want to get their attention and they don't pay attention to you. So don't you want to sort of get bigger in order to get their attention? We can understand that's what's going on with our feelings. Yeah, yeah. And Dinah writes, having difficult feelings doesn't mean you're broken. It sure doesn't. In fact, everything's working very well. There's a different kind of issue when people don't feel much. And that may be going on for some of you. I would expect to be feeling anger, distress, sadness, and instead I feel a kind of emptiness. And that's something that can happen too. Although, as somebody mentioned in the chat, emptiness is a kind of something that we can also give attention to, because emptiness, if I feel emptiness when I would expect to have a reaction, a feelingful reaction, then maybe there's like a blanket. Maybe there's a wall. Maybe there's a cover-up, right? And so if I sit with the place that feels emptiness, numbness, nothingness, then there may be something there. Yeah. Ha! Dinah writes, we don't want to be socially distant from ourselves. Right. Very good. Very good. Nice. Okay, Lily, I understand. Yes. Jan writes, our more quote unquote difficult feelings can point us to what's important and the truth of our hearts. Yes. Emotional reactions link us to our needs, to our desires, to other people. And so what's hard about emotional reactions? Well, they might be so strong that they feel like they take us over, and then we can't think as well. And we may have really distressing physical sensations like having difficulty breathing or very painful tension in the stomach or the shoulders. But it's not the emotions that are to blame. It's the fight with the emotions. And so what I'm teaching in these seminars, these webinars, is a process of being able to be with how you feel. So if you are the one who welcomes your feelings, you go to the door and say, come on in, then you're not fighting them. You are the environment in which they are okay. And then they almost immediately settle and calm down, at least a little bit. And a little bit is great. So how does that strike you? What are you struggling with? Dinah writes, and we're also practicing nonviolence with ourselves. Yes, that's right. You know, I really think this practice has the chance to reduce violence in everyone. Because what if we were able to pause in the middle of an emotional reaction? Let's say somebody's at the grocery store and sees somebody else either wearing a mask or not wearing a mask. Somehow mask wearing seems to be a very hot button these days, at least in my country. And I've heard a lot of stories about people in grocery stores attacking other people for the mask wearing thing. And what if at that moment that I feel like punching that other person for not wearing a mask or wearing a mask, whichever, mine would be for not wearing a mask. What if at that moment I pause? I'm able to say something in me is feeling upset. I'm able to take a moment with myself to acknowledge the fear and longing for a safer world that's behind my upset with this other person. What a beautiful moment. And wouldn't it make it so much less likely that I would react in a violent way to that other person? I would love that. Nisa writes, culture and society have convinced us that some emotions are bad, unwanted, acceptable. Yes, and it starts in our families. I know in my family, anger was, I never saw my parents angry, and that wasn't really great because they, instead of being angry, they would be judgmental. I got a lot of judgmental, but I never got, so anger just didn't happen in our household. Nobody gets angry. But it cut off a whole area of reaction to me, to my life, to what's going on. That would have enabled me to stand up to injustice, that would have enabled me to set boundaries, to speak out when something hurt me or bothered me, even if it's not anger, at least it's clarity. Where can we recover the ability to have our emotions? The other thing to say is there's a distinction between feeling an emotion and expressing an emotion. I have the right to feel all my feelings. It may not be safe or appropriate to express all my feelings. So there's a reserve. I get to feel my feelings. I can create a safety inside myself where my feelings are allowed to be and not necessarily expressed. There's an extra choice involved in whether and how I express them. Yes, yes. Marty writes, being here with all of you makes my hurting parts feel not alone. Aw, sweetie, you have hurting parts. I hope you put your hand on your body and say you hear them. Oh, Christina, you're telling us more about the difficulty breathing. Not sure why I have the short breath, tense neck, and if I'm working, I don't feel I can pause long enough to find out why. Interesting. I wonder how long it would take to pause and find out. You can do that a bit right now. To say something in me something is going on for something in me. I can feel it in my short breath and my tense neck. And I say hello. And I bring awareness there. Even that much is, what I just did took about 20 seconds. And even that much is something that makes a difference, makes a positive difference. And everybody has 20 seconds to give, even in the middle of working. But the feeling that we can't stop, we can say hello to. Something in me feels like I can't even stop long enough to say hello. I say hello to that. Yeah, Hannah writes, when I feel all my feelings, I feel overwhelmed. Okay, well, you can feel one at a time. And my favorite way to do that is with a long sentence with and. So I'm sensing something in me feeling really exhausted right now. And I'm sensing something in me feeling scared. And I'm sensing something in me feeling angry. Now, after the first three, pause and really breathe for a while. And then keep adding if you need to with the word and. And I'm sensing something, worried there's going to be too many feelings. Yeah. Very good. Mary writes, something in me is angry at the something in me that didn't pause when a family member asked a huge favor and said yes when I need to say no. Oh, I know that situation so well, Mary. I'm finding it hard to be with all of this. It's so activating. Something in me feels trapped. I feel stuck. Yeah. Well, you did a great job, Mary, by acknowledging that you're finding it hard. When we acknowledge that we're finding something hard, we're already a step back to being able to be with what we feel. Acknowledging I'm finding it hard. So you said yes when you should have said no. That was a younger you. It didn't happen just this moment. It happened in the past. Maybe it was 10 minutes ago. But a younger you didn't pause and said yes. And so let's make a compassionate space for that younger you who said yes. There's another part of you that's angry at that one. And let's make a compassionate space for that one too. So here's our and. Something in me said yes when I wish she'd said no. Something else in me is angry about that. And I am here with both. And this is activating. So there's probably because there's something about all of this that goes back to an earlier time, that feels like there's older repetitive patterns being played out here again. So I'm also acknowledging that. What we have with us in stressful times is the power of pausing, sensing freshly, how am I now? Acknowledging, including with the hand, including with the language of something in me feels. Nancy writes, I'm sensing something in me that's hurting in my stomach, and I'm listening. And it's not clear yet what the feeling is. Very good. Yes. Very good. Oh, thank you, Dinah. I'm glad this is nurturing for you. Patty writes, as soon as someone expresses something in a contemptuous manner, I automatically feel overwhelmed and forget to pause. Okay. So here's a tip for you and for everybody else. Sitting here now, contemplating, reflecting on the kinds of interactions that can throw us into reactivity. You can now invite that part of you that has a hard time with the contemptuous manner of somebody else. It's not happening at this moment, so it's a memory. So it's going to be easier for you to create a calm space to invite that part of you that reacts to a contemptuous manner and say an inner hello to that and get to know a bit what it is that's going on when it's so activating, so triggering to hear that contempt I just felt my shoulders react to the word contempt. Whew, whew. Yeah. So I'm acknowledging something in me reacting to that word contempt. Yeah. Yeah. Very good. So we can go back, we can go back to times in the past where we didn't pause and pause now and give some company to those places. Yeah. 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 And Andrea writes, I've sometimes been afraid of or judged my parts that go into a physiological threat or freeze state because I have something in me that believes I shouldn't be this way, fears I can't be as I wish I'd be. I love how you're making space for those different signs. That's really beautiful. Yeah. Hi, Catherine. Catherine writes, when I acknowledged that it's hard for me to relax enough to breathe freely, breath relaxed and filled me. I'm just going to let those be the last words because this is what I hope will happen and what could happen when we acknowledge how we feel, including acknowledging that it's hard. Sometimes, a surprising number of times, the next thing that happens is a kind of relief. So lovely to be with you. So lovely to be with you. I'll see you next week.